Hi, this is Mark with Noble Furniture Company. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the first video I'll be posting. It's the Margaret entryway bench. It's one of my first original designs. It's a walnut bench with a Danish weave top. So here you'll see me with some 8/4 walnut, and I will just be marking out the material. And then after that I will use my jigsaw to just cut down some chunks that are easier to manage on the bandsaw, where I can rip down each individual piece to close to the final dimensions of it. After that I joint one face, and then I will run each one through the planer, and then I get a parallel edge on the opposite side of the one that went through the joiner. So here's my L fence. It's probably my favorite jig in the shop. It uses the plywood above the blade and the outside of the blade closest to me as basically like a flush trim bit. The benefits of it are I can cut both sides, and I can also cross cut the top, so it eliminates the need for multiple jigs and setups. So I just pretty much set this thing up once, and then I cut all the leg parts out of it. So here you'll see the benefit of the L fence. I'm able to run both sides through, and it eliminates the need for joining, like I said. And then I'm also cross-cutting them, which makes it super simple. Then I pre-drill a little bit holes for the brass pins that you'll see later. And here I am just rough cutting the stretcher material and the cross members down to close to final width, and then I rip them on the bandsaw because I don't feel like running them through the planer 50 times just to get them down to about an inch. And here I am running them through probably 15 times or something, I don't know. I didn't really count, and I chopped some of this out. So now you'll see I'll rip all the cross members and the stretchers down to the final width. And if you can't tell by now, I'm just kind of going with this, so I hope you enjoy this voiceover. And then I switched my table saw blade to a flat grind blade, and I cut out the joinery in the leg parts. And I prefer this over a dado stack. It just seemed to yield better results. And since I didn't feel like switching my blade back, I left the flat grind blade on here and cross cut the stretchers down to the final length, which was 48 inches. And now I will cut the joinery for the stretchers. So I'll do a little final cleanup on these bridle joints, just using a block to again eliminate tear out, and then a chisel just to clean it up a little bit. Then I do a little dry fit, and then I mark the legs for the roundovers. And I only do the inside first because, as you'll see later, it kind of comes in contact with the bridle joints, and I don't want to mess those up because it's just a lot of work to make them. Then I start cross-cutting the side supports for each one, or the cross members rather. And I just do the two outside ones first, clamp them on, and then measure the inside one that will be the part for the weave, and that's where the top bench will go. And then I just dry fit it in real quick. Then I start marking out for dominoes. And all YouTubers say you can use dowels or pocket holes or whatever you want, but I use the domino. I bought it. I love it. And that's about it. So I just mark everything out, lay it out. I tend to use a square and set it at one depth, and then I can just mark and cut all the dominoes the same spots, and it just seems to work out for me. I've seen other people do it other ways, but this is how I do it, and I've always yielded good results. So before I glue everything up, I just So after they've been glued up and dried, I'll run the outside edge with the round over. And as you can see, it just comes into the bridle just a little bit, so that's why I always do that afterwards. And here's a time that everybody loves to watch, and it's just a bunch of sanding. I'll probably end up putting some music around this because I don't know how I'm going to talk while I sand, but obviously I just run through all the grits, sand each one with my sander, and then you'll see later that I'll just come through and hand sand. But while I'm just sitting here talking, I figure I'll ask you if you could just like, comment, and subscribe. I will continue to work on this and improve. The voiceovers will potentially get better. I don't know yet. After all the sanding's complete, I just take the compressor and just clean everything off, getting it all ready for the final glue up. So here I'll pour some glue in the blue silicone thing, which I bought at a store. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you probably didn't know what store that is. And then I just assemble all the pieces with the dominoes. It's pretty simple. Stand it up, put the other leg part on with a little glue in there, obviously. And then I just clamp it up. After the clamps, I take an acid brush with some water and just try to brush all the glue joints out. I find the brush will get in that corner a little better than anything else. And that was me taking the clamps off really quick, doing a quick hand sanding. And now I'm going to polish the brass pins, which act as an accent and also kind of help lock in that joint with the dominoes. There's not a huge shoulder on that bridle joint, so I like the dominoes on the one side and the brass pins on the other just to create a good mechanical connection. And I'm using 220 grit, 320 grit, and a steel wool pad, and that seems to put a nice luster on the brass pins. So if you noticed before, I used the template to just put a little hole with the Forstner bits when I was running the L fence, and now I'll finish out the drilling of that, and that'll go right into that bridle joint. Then I use the polyacrylic glue on this, and I've always had good results. Put a little bit on, and just pound the brass pins in, nice and flush. And wipe everything down. After that, I will use walrus oil furniture butter, and I seem to gravitate towards that with walnut. It just is a really simple finish to use and always gives me really good results. And I'm just putting some more finish on. You can see a little handprint here or there, but just going through slow, checking everything, making sure I didn't miss any glue. And here's going to start the weave. So I am going to probably post another YouTube video about this where I go more into detail. This is just going to be really quick. But I do a no-nail style weave with double cow hitches on it. And I just really like the way that looks, and I don't feel like pounding in 1,000 nails to weave the bench. So I'll stop talking now and you can enjoy watching me weave the bench. picked up a few things on how I wove the bench, and like I said, I definitely will post something about it. I'll just clean these up, and I didn't get it on camera, but I glue all those extra pieces down. I just forgot to glue them. Here I'm making the top panel for the other side of the bench, and I'll use a 6-inch wide piece, and my joiner doesn't really get it great, so I'll usually just take a hand plane to that 1 inch just to get it, flatten it out with the joiner. Here I got a little lazy with the camera and kind of left it. And then I like to do a single piece to cut it, so I'll use my table saw to cut it a little bit first, run it through the bandsaw, then through the joiner, and then glue it up in a panel. I can't remember the exact name for that, but I like the look of it. So after that, I'll just hand plane it a little bit after the glue up, quickly sand it since I sanded so much earlier. I'll cross cut it down to pretty close to its final length that'll fit inside of that bench. I usually leave it oversized later. Cut the notches out on each side, and I do all this by hand, and it's a little nerve-wracking, and then your neighbor comes over and starts talking to you, and it gets even more distracting. But luckily I took my time, marked them out well, and that part of it worked. And then you'll see me here just kind of going back and forth, just sneaking up on that fit. You just get that one perfect fit, and like I told my neighbor, I can't make it longer if I mess it up, so I'd rather just go back and forth than mess the thing up. And I had to just trim a little bit off that edge and sanded it a little bit, and then got the perfect fit. And then again, I'll just use the walrus oil furniture butter, and then I'll hammer that piece right in. And another thing I didn't get on camera is I put a bottom stretcher in, but here's the final piece. I recorded this on my phone, so just wanted to add that in there, but I just absolutely love this bench. So if you stuck around this long, I really thank you for taking the time to watch my first YouTube video, and I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. So again, I've asked earlier, but if you could, subscribe. Thank you.